Hi, Peter Charles here, and today let's look at the Fujifilm extension tubes that we can mount on our cameras and lenses to improve their close-up capability. And let's see if they're really functional and useful. Okay, here I have my XS10, and I've got the 70-300 zoom on it, and I have the extension tube mounted right there. And this is the 16mm tube. There's also an 11mm tube available as well. So I went out this morning and went around my garden, took some pictures of flowers and bugs and what have you. And I'm going to put the results up and we'll talk about them. But a few things I want to talk about first off. This is not a substitute for a real macro lens. If you want to get really tight, really close, with really good quality, you have to use a macro lens. When you're using an extension tube, it pushes the rear element of the lens further away from the sensor, which tends to slightly exacerbate any optical problems the lens might have. It's a small effect, but it's there. So if you were really into critical macro work, you'd want to use a regular macro lens. Plus, you don't get the magnification out of it. The best magnification this will produce is 0.4, 40% basically magnification, versus like 1:1 with the macro lens. So I guess that would be 1 to 2.5, I guess, if you do the math in my head. So you're not really getting the full benefit, but if you don't want to spend the money for a macro lens and you just do occasional macro photography like I do, is this adequate? So let's take a look at my results from this morning and we'll make that decision. I noticed the little tiny drops of moisture or dew on this rose that was well past its prime, and I thought it'd be a good subject to show that you can get in quite tight with this setup. So now these shots are all straight out of the camera. I haven't modified them in any way, so this is slightly underexposed. But again, you can see the details in the water droplets and in the petals of the flower. Now this shot wasn't quite as tight. I was a little further back, and gives me enough depth of field to get most of those petals relatively in focus, at least within the depth of field of the lens. And I was shooting all of this at f11, by the way. I spotted this green fly hopping from flower to flower, and he was moving fast, so I only got a couple of shots. But shows you the detail in the fly. You can see the hairs quite well, the eyes, the wings, and the moisture on the petals of the flower. So it gives you a good idea what it can resolve. This bumblebee was moving around quite quickly. It wasn't settling on any flower for any length of time. So I got a lot of pictures where the wings or the back was in focus. But this is a good one, and I think I like it cropped in. This big wasp was the best of the bunch, and it was quite cooperative. She let me get quite close, and I get some good shots of her. And I think I like it cropped in like this. This is where using a larger sensor camera would work out better, but even so, the XS10 produce a decent result. Okay, you can see the results I got out of this setup. I deliberately chose the XS10 when I have an XH2 in the camera bag. I wanted to pick a camera that is not at the high end of the Fujifilm scale. Now, one of the reasons for doing that is the autofocus is not going to have that object tracking that will lock in on an insect. And that was evident when I took these photos. I had a number of focus misses because the insect was moving, and so instead of being the focus on its head, the focus was on its back or its wings or someplace where I didn't want it to be, in other words. It was in focus somewhere, but not the spot I wanted. So I chose this camera to prove a point, basically, that you don't need the top-of-the-line Fujifilm gear to make this work. Now, I'm also going to put up the name of a PDF file that you can download. I'll put the full name so you can Google it and find it. And that gives all of the Fujifilm lenses at the date of the publication of that PDF with their magnification without an extension tube, with the 11mm extension tube, and with the 16mm extension tube. And it tells you the magnification rates. So that's very, very useful. So if you want to get into an extension tubes in Fujifilm, I suggest you download that PDF file. So anyway, I was quite happy with the results. I am quite happy. I use this quite a bit. I use it in my studio, this setup exactly, for my fly tying videos. So if you look at the magnification during that video of a fly on the vise, it's from this exact setup. My only wish was that Fujifilm made an extension tube that was a bit longer, you know, somewhere around 20-21 millimeter. That would be handy, get you a little bit closer. But other than that, I mean, they do work. They give perfectly acceptable results. And so if you want to get into, you know, close-up photography and you don't want to spend money on a macro lens, this is a good way to go. Cheers.